Good evening. I'd like to open this meeting of Committee of the Whole on May 1st, 2024. We're starting just about 6 p.m. We would like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And I do have a live streaming notice to include before we call this meeting to order. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Town of Annapolis Royal YouTube channel. So to those present in the gallery today, and we have our speaker here, by attending a public meeting of the council, you're consenting to having your image, voice, and comments recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the CAO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming, which has never happened before. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant, like the lights going out or something. So, present, we have all members of council present, except for the Deputy Mayor, Michael Tompkins, who's conveyed his regrets. Our speaker today is Donna Lugar. She's with us. Are there any additions to the agenda? There are none. We'll approve the agenda by unanimous consent. And with respect to the minutes of the Committee of the Whole of April 3, 2024, are there any errors or omissions, any corrections? So hearing none, we are approved by unanimous consent, which brings us to our presentation on Lyme disease presentation by Donna Lugar. And Donna, I believe you've been advised there's 15 minutes for the presentation. And any more questions come up. Thank you so much for being with us. Welcome. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I think I've been allowed to share my screen. Maybe not.
You have.
Oh, there it is. Looks like that's been just kind of, there it is. Yep. We can see it. It's pretty clear, Paula. No, Sunday wasn't. It was in a row.
So, as this is a very short presentation, and I can talk about this for hours and hours, I will quickly go through some of the basic information. It is, this has been made available to you guys. You can share it. It has a lot of information on it. So I'm going to kind of go through quickly, pick on a couple of things that I think our awareness is absolutely needed about, and also mention what I think municipal units can do to help raise awareness and make sure that your constituents are doing the proper preventative measures.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go through these quickly because I'm hoping that most of you, if not all of you, have the basic knowledge of what a tick is and how they get around and don't get around. They don't fly, they don't jump. They're very slow for the most part. The feeding is an interesting concept. Generally is not felt. You generally do not feel a tick bite. It is something that can happen. They can be on you for days at a time, and you would never know, depending on where they might be hiding.
Oh.
So there's at least 14 kinds of ticks in Nova Scotia. We usually have 2 that might bite people. That's the dog and the black-legged ticks. Both can be carrying diseases, so it's not just Lyme and it's not just black-legged ticks that can cause illness in people. This is just a little chart to kind of give you an idea of the differences of some of the ticks. A Lone Star tick, although not prevalent in this province yet, some have been found. That is the tick that can actually cause that weird red meat allergy. It's getting quite prevalent in the northeastern United States, so I'm sure it's going to be getting more prevalent here as everything does. It comes up the East Coast. So there are a number of illnesses. As I said, Lyme's not the only one. Anaplasmosis, babesiosis, and Powassan virus have all been now added to the reportable diseases. So they have been found in ticks in Nova Scotia. And unfortunately, in the case of babesiosis, it has a different treatment than Lyme, and Powassan virus doesn't have any treatment. So we're, prevention is absolutely key when it comes to tick bites. You do not want a tick bite. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, all of Nova Scotia is considered high risk right now. There's the most recent map, July 2023, where all of the province is higher risk. It used to be thought that ticks were active in spring, late spring into the fall a bit. Now we know that in Nova Scotia, they can be active any month of the year when the temperatures allow. It's generally over 4 degrees Celsius, but if you're in a little microclimate of sunny area, they can be active basically any day of the year in Nova Scotia. So there's a lot of prevention methods, and I'm not going to go through all of them. There's quite a good list here. I love the idea of having a little lint roller. You can get them at the dollar stores, have them in your pocket, roll them over your clothes and your body, and they'll pick up any unattached ticks. It's a great little device and something handy to have.
That's smart.
There, a lot of people say wear long pants, long sleeves, tuck your pants in your socks, which all work, but how many people actually do that in the heat of the summer? So really the tick checks, showering shortly after being indoors, again, carrying the lint roller and using your either picaridin or natural repellent. If DEET, if you want to, that's not my preference. It's a little too chemically for me, but the picaridin is much safer in my opinion. And certainly there is the new Atlantic natural repellent that has received federal approval as an actual tick repellent. The natural repellents have to be used more frequently than the other ones. You have to keep on spraying it. So you have to take the bottle with you. And if you can't smell it anymore, you want to reapply it. Again, there's a lot of different things you can do for prevention. And one of the things I do like is when you come in, take your clothes off, throw them immediately into a hot dryer for 15 or 20 minutes, and that'll dry out the tick and kill it. You throw it in the washing machine, it has a little swim, and it doesn't do too much to it, but the hot dryer will dry it out. There's a few different sprays around. It's a personal choice, but there's a lot of variety of ones that do work. The Nova Scotia government has a lot of information on its website, as does the federal government. You can ask for these different posters if you want to put them up in various locations. The federal government also has large ones as well. I actually have them behind me on my board of places that you look for ticks and being out in the well, I was going to say the wilderness, but basically being out anywhere. Ticks can be active. It's not just in the woods anymore. It's your backyard, golf courses, parks. They can be anywhere and everywhere. Even the grasses around a beach area, which that is kind of new information. They're being found around that area. You really need to know the proper way to remove a tick, and the federal government does have a very good tick removal video that came out a couple of years ago, and it really shows well what you're supposed to do and also mentions what you shouldn't do. And there's a lot of things that you shouldn't do this time of year. Sometimes you'll see people posting about smothering it with Vaseline or twisting it around and around and around and all these different things, but really this is the best way with tweezers or a tick removal tool. Just get as close to the skin as possible and pull slowly up so they can retract those barbs. If you pull too fast, those barbs that are in your skin will just rip out a huge hunk of skin, opening up to even other types of infection. Tick testing is something that we used to do free of charge, but now I believe the only place you can get a tick tested is at a private lab called Genetics. and there is a fee for it, unfortunately. But sometimes, because multiple things can be in a tick, it's good peace of mind just to know what it might be or might not be carrying, and that sometimes is easier to find out what's wrong with you than present day texting for people, because that isn't 100% effective. The transmission time is something that is also kind of bantered about being different. It generally does take a bit more time for Lyme to be transmitted, but for instance, Powassan virus can be transmitted in as little as 15 minutes. So again, prevention, prevention, prevention. The Lyme rash, or rashes, I should say, they're called erythema migrans, EM rash. For the many years, we thought that the bullseye version, which is in the picture, was the Lyme rash. However, we now know that that is actually seen in only a small percentage of cases, and there's actually more common rashes that are possible for an erythema migrans. It's generally a small rash. If you watch it, it will grow over time and can get quite large. And that is what a Lyme rash is, not just this bullseye version. The CDC, I think it was last year or the year before, put out this excellent poster about the different types of Lyme disease rashes. And as I said, there's different appearances. They're hard to see on darker skin. There's all kinds of things that we are now learning more and more about. So, as I mentioned, the testing is not 100% accurate. A negative test does not mean you do not have Lyme or possibly something else. There are several reasons for a negative test. You don't really hear that often. Sometimes a doctor will say, your test is negative, you don't have Lyme. That is incorrect. You may have Lyme, and then the test was just a false negative. The main thing, and I think I've said it over and over again, is prevention is key. We really need to do those preventative measures. And it's surprising to me how frequently I hear from people that do not do anything, even if they are spending time out in the wilderness or in their backyard doing gardening work or raking leaves or doing whatever. A lot of people don't take this issue as seriously as I think they should. You should definitely be outside enjoying the weather and enjoying all the fresh air. But you do have to understand that ticks are now a part of our life and our daily routine, and we need to take them seriously and undertake all of those measures. I kind of want to throw this out here because ticks have been around for a long time in this province. And it's, we kind of started hearing about it in the early 2000s. And we've been hearing more and more about it as time has progressed, but we're still lacking in our knowledge, and even our healthcare professionals, they have different levels of awareness and knowledge on the issues. So we really have to keep at this awareness piece, and as I said, make it year round. And in my personal opinion, it needs to be more in your face. So if people are out in a particular area and they see a sign that says, tick awareness or ticks may be present, that they go, oh yes, I have to be careful and undertake. So on this last few pages, it's just tons and tons of information and links and things where you can get more information. As I said, I could talk for hours, but I think it's more important to actually allow for questions. So I'm just kind of going to flick through these. You have this that has been given available to you. So if there's anything more you want to look at, there it is there. And I said there's lots and lots of information. So I will actually just open it up to questions.
Thank you, Donna. That was a great presentation and delivered in no time at all. And thanks for getting it to us ahead of time. So I'm going to open up to questions and members of council. Who wants to go first? Polly.
Yeah, so if we come across a tick, like you said, with your lint roller, or just make sure you sweep them off, aren't you supposed to kill them too? Shouldn't we kill them?
Well, they're actually hard to kill.
I know.
They are hard to kill. If you're out in the wilderness, it's really hard to kill them. Really, they almost have to be in Scotch tape squeezed in, thrown in the garbage. Don't put them down the toilet. They don't freeze. You can put them in your freezer for safekeeping while you think about whether you're going to test them or if any symptoms arise. So they're really hard to kill.
What do you do with them
I wish
then?
we could kill them. Of course, with the new,
Well,
the
that's
pesticide,
okay.
they are. You don't want to. They're in what's in them on your fingers. If you have any cuts, if you have any cuts in your fingers
Yeah.
or openings at all, that can go in. So you don't want to squeeze them.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, I would either just flick them off and leave them alone, or if you're home or near something, like squeeze them between two pieces of.
Burn them. You can burn them with a match.
Asphyxiation works, right? In a
No,
plastic
not
bag.
really. No, that just kind of makes them angry.
But they die, but they do die eventually. That's the method we've been using. is
Well,
throw them in a-
they are very
So
difficult.
the Ziploc bags, so that there's no air after a while.
Yeah, I
That
said
seems
Scotch
to
tape.
work.
Put it
I
in
think it's
Scotch
Or
tape.
do you need to burn them?
I put mine in a container of vinegar.
Okay, does that kill them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And,
then they just kind of float around.
okay,
And
and is
cross
it just
dimensional flow.
females? Is it just females that bite and are poisonous, or?
Yes, and black-legged ticks. Yes, it's the
I
females.
noticed that in your presentation, yeah, okay. They're angry. No, I'm scared to death of ticks, and I do take it very seriously. Yeah, but thank you for the presentation.
So
Well-
I have a question. In the event somebody has been bitten, can they go to the pharmacy and get some medication immediately?
Yes. Do I recommend it? No.
Okay.
If you've been bitten, the pharmacist can provide a prophylactic single dose, which there's limited research on whether it does what they say it might do. It may prevent the rash, but alternatively, any antibiotic usage can prevent getting a positive ELISA test back. So it may prevent a rash, maybe, and it may interfere with testing. So then you have difficulty in trying to find out, if you start getting symptoms, what it is, because your two main ways of diagnosing it are gone.
Oh, God.
Oh, okay.
So I have 2 members of my family with ticks, 14 yesterday and 3 today, and they use tweezers and pull
To
them
remove them.
to remove them from the skin. They use the method she recommended.
Did they
Yeah.
keep them? Are they going to send them away
No,
for
they're
testing?
not gonna send them away for testing, yeah.
They went in that plastic bag.
Is it right to assume that
A Ziploc plastic bag, which is effective in smothering them to death eventually. They don't
Yeah.
get out of the bag.
is it right to assume that every little black deer tick has Lyme disease?
No, it varies from place to place. I think I've heard the highest in certain areas of the province would be 40 to 60% carry them. So it does vary. I think I would say probably most of the provinces at a minimum of 20%. And then, as I said, there's some areas that are a higher percentage carry it. Now, we don't really know how many might carry the anaplasmosis or the babesiosis or the Powassan virus. That hasn't really been investigated fully. So, but Lyme disease, they've really stopped testing. So they basically just said, okay, we know that there's Lyme and ticks. We don't need to test them anymore. So, the information's a little outdated.
Anybody else? Question?
Well, I'm very familiar with Lyme, well, not with Lyme disease, but with ticks. I'm a golfer. And it seems that ticks really like me. But my question, I guess, is can you comment on the effectiveness of repellents? It's not something I normally use because I don't like the smell. But
Well-
are they effective in preventing ticks from?
Some of them are quite effective. None of them are 100% effective. As someone that would be spending a lot of time outdoors, if you were possibly might want to consider permethrin treated socks. And the permethrin actually kills the ticks if they are on the socks. And that, yeah. So it's a good product. You can buy, I don't think you can buy socks at Mark's. And Mark's you can buy pants and shirts and hats. Socks, you might have to do a little bit of a dive through Amazon.ca or somewhere else to get permethrin treated socks. But for, like I said, for anybody that's spending any amount of time outdoors, permethrin treated clothing is probably
There you
the
go.
best.
Okay.
So ticks apples, do they smell? Yes.
Is there a scent to that sock? I mean, before you wear it.
Well, there would be afterwards.
Not that I know of, no.
Okay.
Cause you said that
The
the
scent bothers you.
the scent, like all the.
It's a
Yes,
fence.
the regular.
Yeah, and all that kind of
Yes.
smell.
Have you
so the
tried that
socks-
Atlantic tick? That's pretty good stuff. And then
Is it effective?
Atlantic tick is effective, I think, is it not?
The newest one, which was approved by the federal government, which I don't have with me at the moment, but the federal government recently approved their newest spray as being a tick repellent. I think it's for I can't remember the period of time, but it's fairly lengthy. And Acadia University did all of the research on that. That was required to ensure that it was effective. Now, I personally found the old Atlantic kind of smelly, which was part of the reason why it worked. But the newer one is less smelly. In my opinion.
Yeah, and Councillor Hafting has a question.
Yeah, one quick question. So I give my dog a dosing of Bravecto or whatever it's called, like every 3 months. It's a tick and a flea and a heartworm and everything else.
Yeah.
Is there other studies right now for human medication for prevention that we can take ahead of time that's would be safe?
Yes, there's actually many studies going on right now in the US for different types of treatment. One of them, which again kind of terrifies me, but one of them is like the one you would give a dog that it would kill the tick if it bit you. And I'm going,
Yeah, I think it.
I would not take that personally, but I think, they're working on a vaccine. They're working on, vaccinating mice because it's generally the white-footed mice that actually give the bacteria to the ticks. The ticks aren't born with Lyme disease. They actually feed off something that, like I said, the white-footed mice and whatever that would be curing it. And so, yeah, they're looking at vaccinating mice. They're looking at all kinds of different things. So there's a lot of research going on.
Sounds good.
Well, I got some great information. Thank you.
Donna, you're a credit to the support group
Yay.
because we learned some things, thought about some things, we learned some new things. So thank you very much for sharing that. Really appreciate the update.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Could I ask our CAO a question? Is that something that would go on our newsletter, just like information about ticks?
Yes.
Upcoming tick season?
Well,
It was in your newsletter this month of May.
Okay, well, I haven't read it yet. It goes to my spam.
It is Lyme disease prevention month, correct? Yes. So yeah, it's in our newsletter
Thanks.
this month.
That's amazing.
So it's gone into our newsletter for May.
Thank you. And I'm just going to
Thank you.
quickly put in, if you can consider signage on municipal properties, just give that a thought. Please and thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
consider
you.
that. Take care. Have a good evening.
Donna.
Good night.
Thank you.
Did she say March workwear?
Yeah, so we learned some new things.
But
Not for the socks.
Not for the socks,
For
but
the
and I think the socks are key.
Pants and shirts.
All right.
It's a good Father's Day gift. It's coming right up, right? For,
Tick socks.
yeah.
Emily, I love you so much. I bought you some tick socks.
My brother and his daughter would have appreciated those. They've been brushing in Belle
I
Isle
think Paul would like them.
and Round Hill.
Probably not
They've been
ugly.
brushing in both locations, major ticks.
Oh.
Major ticks.
Well, very informative.
We don't have any public input today. For unfinished business, I believe there's a recommendation that the discussion on streets and sidewalks bylaw and snow and ice control policy be deferred until we are all present for the discussion.
Okay.
Is there
I
better-
wasn't sure if both of them or just the bylaw for sure.
Okay, so just the bylaw.
I'm not sure. We can table both of them.
So what is your preference?
Yeah.
this is a draft.
Yeah, so
Yes.
Michael, I had sent in saying that because he was the one that requested the information. from the
Okay,
solicitor
fair enough, yeah,
On the bylaw.
We've got
Mhm,
time.
I thought about that.
yeah,
That he wanted to be part of the conversation, so he
Okay.
asked to be tabled.
yeah.
Yes.
But the snow and ice control policy, I don't know if you wanted to look at that one, because there was just that
Well,
one.
let's take a look at tab 3 and see what you think.
Yeah.
Okay, we have them both here, so snow and ice control.
Okay, mine's loading really slow.
And we have the opinion received from the town solicitor on that.
I just wondered, because they're both they're related, so
Yeah,
if
so I think
Michael
we should
didn't
table.
wanted.
That was the feeling, I think.
Yes.
Then that's fine, yeah.
Yeah,
And we've got time on our hands, because hopefully we're not gonna have any more snow or ice.
Well, we say we have time on our hands and then all of a sudden it's another month and soon another council.
And yes,
and then
that's-
it's a storm is
All right.
brewing.
So we're tabling items
Okay.
1 and 2 then?
Yeah.
So that we can all be present.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And then we move on to item 3, which is a request for decision on the EV charger sponsorship policy. And you have the report.
So currently we have the policy that states that the sponsorship pays for the utility cost of the year. Since the usage has been so high, we're having a hard time covering the cost, so we are asking to reduce it to $500 and having 2 sponsors at each location to help cover the cost.
Okay,
So are there any questions about the request for decision first?
Well, I
Yeah.
think it's important that we cover our cost, and if our cost is going to be $2,200, then we need to find some way of recouping that, and if sponsorship is the way to go, there are people who are willing to do it. Great, would have been nicer if it was just 2 who are willing to split the cost, as opposed to having to put up 4 signs. But, you know,
and we did also talk about putting up, parking meters there. And charging.
well, and we need to, I don't know if this is getting away from what you want to discuss at this particular moment. But, you know, why are we using $2,200 worth of electricity? Is it because of people coming into town for the day and parking the vehicle for the day and charging? As
That's
opposed
not,
to-
yeah,
As opposed to, you know, our intended use, which would be visitors to the town, whether they're going to a store or whatever, tourists, and just using it for an hour or so to charge their vehicle.
Yeah, it's,
We're getting away from the intended use, and maybe that's why the cost is going up.
there is more use from the visitors as well, but there is a constant use of local people that are using them.
Yeah.
And the way it is now, there's no stopping. Whoever's using them is using them,
Right.
right?
Is there a way of tracking which cars are using it? They don't have to put in their license plate, there's no, so how do we know there's more use from out of town tourists? We don't know.
Anecdotal on
No.
the street.
Anecdotal, yeah,
Yes.
okay. Okay, so the net revenue would be $1,900 to the town, once you've taken out the extra 50.
Expenses.
Well, except that then that
Except-
1,900 goes towards the power bill, right?
That's all, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so it allows us to earn money, but it would offset another.
It would offset.
Yeah.
Right,
It's not gonna cover the complete cost,
no,
but we can't find anybody that's willing to pay more than $500 sponsorship.
yeah, and I know.
We've hit kind of the market rate for,
yeah, and we have the
Nothing there.
the 2 extra sponsors lined up,
No,
well, not yet.
no.
So
We
we
have no sponsors right now at all,
So
because they
didn't
don't wanna
renew?
pay the $1,100.
Would they pay
The
the
sponsor.
500 each?
A couple of them have agreed to that amount,
Okay.
and that's why we're kind of going with that amount.
That's a good idea, it's more reasonable.
no, Councillor Weir is right, you know, there's 2 separate issues. But what staff have put in front of us is the here and now.
Mhm.
Whatever policy we decide to adopt in the future, well, it's not before us, really.
Yeah,
So, is there anything else on this before?
no, I can, make the recommendation to recommend to council to approve the EV sponsorship policy 2024-06 dated April 2024.
I will second that.
All right, you ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, staff. That's done. Okay, I made the mistake of turning over my page. Back okay. So now we are on to item 4, which is fire area rate, tab 5.
So I just wanted to bring some information to start the discussion as our contract with the fire department talks about installing the fire area rate. So I've highlighted the section 75 of the MGA that gives us the permission to do area rates. And then I have included a copy of a draft, or a copy of a current, can't remember if I used the municipality or the town of Kemptville. Their bylaw, which is the same as the municipality of the County of Kings, which I've been talking to them a lot recently and finding out more information. So on also under section 296 of the MGA, it outlines the responsibilities of being a fire commission or a fire department. So if it's a fire department, we are not required to have the annual meetings. That was in the 2 that are there. If you're a fire commission, it's mandated that you have to have the special meetings for the taxpayers to vote on them. So just more information, and I can send you out the policy. It says that council may make policies respecting full-time volunteer and composite fire departments and emergency service providers in the municipalities. And section D says an annual meeting to report to the public respecting fire and emergency service, and are not necessary provisions in the municipality. So that's section 296. Which I just received and was working, I've been talking with Scott McKay from Kings County on how their process works, and he says there's good things about having the annual meeting, because the fire hall comes, makes a report or a presentation to the whole public, and then the public has a chance to vote on it. The vote, the public's vote is just one aspect that council would consider when they're making the fire area rate. So even if the residents say they don't want the fire rate at this rate, they want it at a different rate, it's still council's final decision on the fire rate. And you can also do it by per tax bill instead of a percentage. So there's 2 options, and those are outlined in there as well. So just kind of looking to see your thoughts on what your next steps for staff, or if you have other questions that you want me to look into more, or.
Complications, because it's not just the town of Annapolis Royal that funds the fire department. And we have the municipality, which is doing so, does so as well. Does that, Eddie, complicate this in any way?
They have, in Kings County, they have the same thing, and they just go by their agreement. So if one of their departments goes by percentage of calls, so their expenses are on the percentage of calls per year, so then their expenses are done by that. Our agreement doesn't go by percentage of calls or anything. We seem to pay just as much as the county does for probably less calls, but when you need them, you need them. And then this way it's coming, and it doesn't come off your tax bill, but it shows you exactly how much money would be going to the fire department. And that includes like all capital costs as well.
Yes.
So not just expenses for, if, you know, it would be the ladder truck or the truck that we're responsible for, or whatever as well.
And we did
Building
ask the county to participate in negotiations, and that just didn't happen. At the time, things could be different now.
And the county does have its own area rate.
Correct. Yeah, so they have 11 departments. They just finished a review, and I think they've been asked, they received different options of combining a couple of the fire departments, sharing equipment between departments.
To bring the cost down and
To help pay the cost, yeah, because they have 11 in the county.
Yeah, that's. to maintain, for sure.
It's a large area.
Yeah, it
as
is.
well, so.
So, was it the all local fire department that started this conversation for the fire rate, or has this come from staff? Like, where did this begin?
I think it was, we had a conversation, we met with the fire department, and I think it was,
I think staff proposed it as a
and they,
solution.
and they liked the idea.
Yeah,
They
they
liked
did.
the idea?
Well,
Yeah.
because it would be very clear.
Right.
And the way the town staff pitched it is people are more likely to support a tax for a volunteer fire department if it's very clear and transparent.
Hmm.
As opposed to everything being thrown in the general tax rate.
Yeah, when you're reading it, it would just be very clear and concise.
Well, and in theory, you could have something for every department
Yeah,
representation.
that
in
would be
theory,
That would be.
but we're
going
not
down
there
right.
now. This would be
Yeah.
our first area rate because we
Yeah.
have one area. So you could argue the general tax rate is an area rate, but it's not specific to a service.
Yeah,
So this would be our first attempt. And it's interesting because their policy talks, well, they talk under the MGA about a variety of area rates.
Yeah,
And it
so,
may be an area we want to go, or a future council may wish to go in future.
yeah, so Kings County has a recreational rate.
Hmm.
That they have in different areas as well as the fire rate.
Okay,
And you could argue that's easier for the public, right? Then you know exactly where the money's going.
right, so the applicant would be the fire hall.
Correct.
So it says in the example from Kentville, the administration fee is 4% to offset the costs billed to the applicant.
We wouldn't do that here.
Okay,
Because it's just them and us, like,
Right.
it would be just, so at Kings County and Kemple, they have different fire rates and different groups that are asking
Okay.
for money, so then it's more work, but for us, it would just be, we would receive the money and we would give the money back to them,
Okay.
so I wouldn't suggest that we have an administration fee at all.
okay, because that was my next question. How much extra administration is this gonna be for staff?
Well, we write them checks now.
Okay.
So, and it's just in their agreement, it says they get a check 2 different times a year, and I can't remember, one I think is in January and one is,
Forget, but
because
it's
we,
twice a year.
twice a year. And
Okay.
it's in the agreement, it says which month they get paid. And we kind of do it after the tax bills go out, so we have the money in our bank to pay the money, right?
Right, well, that was my next point. It said submissions are only during the budget period, so this would be for next year.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
And my last question is, how do we set the rate? What's the calculation, the formula? Is there a set way of doing that?
Well, the next thing about fire rate is the police department the fire department comes, makes a presentation.
Right,
So they're basically saying, here's.
this is what we need.
And they'd be
Okay.
challenged by council as usual, like in any
Right,
budget
right.
process.
okay,
But in the end, you'd have to give it quite a bit of weight once you go to the
Yeah.
area rate.
okay,
And then we also have to include like our contribution to the truck.
right.
So currently, we are only putting 20,000 a year aside for the fire truck, which is not enough, so that should be probably 40 or 50,000 a year that we need to accumulate. So that would all be added to their expenses and then determined, and it goes, you can do it, like I said, on the assessment, so we would have the assessment rates in February, and then that would be what we would use to calculate the percentage off of.
Mhm.
Or do we go by a tax bill?
Mhm.
The county of Kings uses it on all commercial, residential and resource properties. And that way, if you have a larger house, it would be a larger fire, more need for the fire, so that's why they do it on the assessment. Or you could do it by the tax
Mm.
bills and say $250, just, I don't know if that's the amount, just throwing an amount out, not to get anybody
Hypothetically,
excited, yeah. But every tax bill would just have $250, like we would take the expenses and divide it by the number of tax bills.
Mm.
And then each person would pay the same.
Okay.
So whether that would be fair if you have a 1-story bungalow to the Queen Anne Inn,
Right, for example.
for
Yeah.
example.
but when you're doing it that way, to me, that seems fair, because yes, you may have a small property that's on fire, but you may be beside great big other property, like, we're all in the same.
That's right, the
boat.
fire's gonna affect everything around.
Yeah, so they're gonna have to call in lots of help no matter what, cause
Yeah.
all of our buildings are very close to one another.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
So, a lot to think about, yeah.
There is a lot,
Yeah,
and it's being
it's a
built
big
in,
deal.
it's something we
Yeah.
built into the agreement, the possibility of having an area rate.
Yeah,
So it does require a lot of discussion to get there.
yeah.
Okay.
And so what's your thoughts then on the public meeting.
To bring it up then?
No, to have a public meeting every year to set the area rate.
Well, even though we're not required to have one because we have a fire department, not a fire commission, I think it's good to have a public meeting. I don't know, to start it off, at least.
Having an area rate doesn't change the amount of money we spend on fire protection. All it means is that rather than taking it out of general revenues, general tax revenues, we're going to have a special,
Right.
basically, earmarked tax. So I like the idea of a public meeting, but I would like to see, I think the public meeting should be something broader. Like if it's time for budget discussions, so February, say, a meeting where people can talk about all items that could be potentially on the budget, not just fire protection.
So then I wouldn't not include it in.
We're
the
not
area
included
rate.
in that.
It would just be something that we
Part
should.
of
Something
budget,
as a
you
council
said.
to
Process.
consider.
But that does bring up the broader thing of public meetings over the budget.
Mhm.
Because that's something some municipalities do. Halifax used to do it when it was a city. They used to go out with the director of finance and the CIO and present the budget. So that's another thing for another day, but that would be something to consider. Okay. Other comments? Go
Just
ahead.
my understanding was that for the ratepayer, it's not gonna be over and above the current tax rate, which is $1.70 for residential, $100.
Not for
of
this
assessment.
year, but next year.
So if it was, say, 15 cents,
This would be separate.
$100
This would
that would
in
be-
addition.
It could allow us to reduce the tax rate.
Correct, because we would
Right.
be taking out those expenses that are already in there, so we already have the 20,000. And I can't remember, let's just, for throwing out an easy number,
Right.
50,000 that we give the fire department.
okay,
So technically we give them 70,000, so that $70,000 of expenses will be removed from our tax base, our tax,
right.
from our
Yeah.
budget. And dealt with separately,
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I see. Mhm.
so
But
they're
in
still
view of the truck.
paying, but
Mhm.
yeah.
But in view of the truck, on the
Mhm.
capital side, we know it would result in a
Okay.
higher rate. But it doesn't appear on the general rate, so it explains.
where the
okay,
money's
And
going.
why you're doing it, it's because of capital costs that are, if
Mm.
you don't scale it over multiple years, there's no way to pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's both, where you absorb some of it in the general rate, or, you know, it comes out of the general rate, but you're still gonna have an overall increase because of the capital cost
Mm.
of the truck.
so your question is, do we do a public meeting ahead of time? Or do
No,
we do
as
it in-
part of
as
the,
part of it?
Agreement. or the-
yeah, so part of the
policy.
policy that we have to have, because we have to have a policy
Yeah.
to move forward.
And we have till 2025, but it's good to start
Yeah,
early as we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to
I
start
kind of
early.
like Paul's idea of having a public meeting to discuss
budget,
several things, so it doesn't really have to be in that policy, but
It
come
will be there.
winter months when we're all just sitting around, nothing to do.
When some of us may be sitting around.
And yeah, have that meeting and have that on the agenda,
Good.
yeah,
So that brings up another outstanding issue in the budget process.
Yeah.
Good.
yeah.
I think that's a great discussion. Any
So
other
am I
comments?
going to bring a draft policy next month
Wow,
to
okay.
review?
No, they don't waste any time now, staff, right?
No, they
get it
don't.
done.
If you're ready.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah,
it starts a discussion, gives us time.
yeah,
To
yeah.
do all the research we need.
And it wouldn't be in effect until
20.
April
2020, yeah.
2025.
But lots of time to discuss it and for the public to see it's under discussion. So That's great.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And now that brings us to a very exciting, I love it, repeal of something. Less red tape. So request for decision under new business, repeal listing and links policy.
So of course, staff, we're going through different things all the time. I
Oh,
came across this policy that we are not
Following.
following, and because the Board of Trade is no longer in existence, just wanting to say just repeal this policy altogether instead of changing it.
Yeah,
I have a suggestion. Instead of repealing it, why not just keep it and just update it and just take out the $50 fee and the link to, well, the discussion about the Annapolis Board of Trade, but just leave it in there because it's a way of encouraging businesses to participate in advertising on the town's website.
Well, we do that anyways.
We
We do
do.
that now.
Okay. well, I
So
saw
the
that.
only reason to repeal it is because we're not charging people
We don't have a fee
$50.
schedule.
We do have a fee schedule, it's $50, but we haven't been
Yeah,
charging
that's fine.
people.
Yeah.
And with the Board of Trade, it was just, let's just get rid of it because we're including anybody that wants to be on the website that gives us their information, so.
Okay,
And it's less red tape.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some people think it's a good thing. Not but a good. So,
There
is there a motion on the floor, or can there be one?
I will move to recommend to council to repeal the listing and links policy number 2017-2 dated February 21st, 2017.
Second.
Ready for the question? All in favor?
I,
Motion carried. There, we've done our contribution to red tape for the day. Then we have a request for decision about the NSFM letter regarding municipal placing, very important. You have a recommendation from staff.
So since my report has been submitted, we now have a meeting date for Truro. So all of the CAOs, mayors, chair of the Board of Police Commission and chiefs are going to attend a meeting in Truro on May 15th at 10 a.m. To discuss, hopefully to have one voice moving forward with the recommendations. And in your package, you've received the chair's suggestions. But I do need to have some direction on what council wants to do. Now, I don't know if you want to wait till after the meeting on the 15th. We can bring back information before we write our response. Or if you have any ideas or suggestions now that we can take, and then we can just write the response after, because the 15th is also our council meeting. So we will be getting up early, driving to Truro, driving back and having council.
Is that feasible?
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
We might consider going up the night before, but, you know, we'll think about that.
How long do you expect the meeting to be?
They were saying at least 2 hours.
Okay.
But right now, the plan is to drive up same day, do the meeting, come back, yeah,
Okay.
yep. Right now, that's the plan.
well, I just read through the points that
Right.
had
Please.
come up, right, even before I got to that, I was making my own notes and then I was scrolling through and I saw the notes from Mark and it was
Yeah.
the same general feeling, all of the points that he's made on here.
Okay.
So I'd like to see what comes out of the meeting in Truro.
Yeah, and these were points that Roy Staggs.
Correct, because he's the chair.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now, I did have some concerns about the points. So, for example, regional police forces should be raised to equal what the RCMP receives. I have some issues there because everyone complains about RCMP services right across the board. And I have trouble supporting their existing pay rates, collective agreement, and all the rest when compared to what municipal forces do. So I'm just saying that council's view may be different, but I agree going with the, hearing the meeting out, we'll have better information, I think.
yeah,
But I have an issue with, so we're looking at a police force that's not really delivering. We have the OPP in Ontario. Mark keeps saying that even the Sûreté du Québec have a higher standard than the RCMP now. So
Wow.
why would we look to a policing agency with not a good reputation at this point? Anyway, it's just a point.
Was he
Why would
talking
we
more about-
compare salaries?
Right, okay.
Why would we want to raise to that? Are we seeking the same level of non-service? I mean, we have municipalities complain about the service.
Okay, but is he referring to the standard of the RCMP or the money?
Salary.
Well,
The
it's saying
salary.
regionally police should be raised to equal, then it's been 15 years without a raise, the program should be raised. at least 250,000 to 300,000 per year. I'm just saying,
Okay,
we care about how much it's gonna cost to police us.
we do.
Well, we want to have, we all enjoy the service we're getting. We're not complaining about the costs, our costs. But comparing it to our CMP costs, which would be unaffordable for our town.
Mm.
I'm just saying that that's not maybe the bar we wanna reach.
Once we
So
had other.
if you're okay
funds.
with waiting for the meeting,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
okay, all right.
I hope out of the meeting, some initiatives come out of it about being more efficient. How the police can stay in the area where they're policing rather than go to hospitals and wait with patients for hours on end, sometimes 8 hours, a whole shift. Our police officer is at the hospital with
Yeah.
somebody that's been admitted. That could be somebody else that could be doing that, and they could return back to the town and continue policing.
Mm.
But there's got to be ways around that, be more efficient.
And the other issue is DOJ appointment. Obviously, they have not cared to make any appointments in the past. Why is that important now? So to me, that's,
Yeah,
why are they telling us we need one when we go for years without one?
yeah,
Right, yeah.
Okay, all right, so we'll take this all with us, and if you have other comments before we go to the meeting,
no,
let us
it'd be
know
interesting
so
to
we
hear
can
back.
raise them.
Well, the other one I was thinking of is between the town and the county. Our policing sometimes goes outside of our town limits. So is there a way of collaboration, supporting each other? How does that look? What does that look
And
like?
this does address like how much, I read it in the report, like how much they're asking units to say, how many times
Right,
Yeah,
you have to call for assistance, or are they calling you for assistance?
exactly.
I think that's a really important point.
Cause it's a slippery slope,
It is.
right? Because if, and I'm sure they have MOUs together, working together. But if they start charging us their rates for coverage, which is a lot more than if we're charging them our rates, right?
Mm.
So if we assist on a call, if we had a call, I think it was today. This morning, there was an accident and it was just outside the town limits. A car lost control on the causeway. It was an RCMP area, but our town was of course the first there.
Right,
So they were on scene until the RCMP showed up to make sure that the scene was
okay.
safe.
And does
Right.
our police department bill the county at that
No.
point? Okay,
And that's why we don't want that to happen, because then if the RCMP starts billing us, so like if we had a major incident. And for example, if we needed to get a dog here.
Yeah.
That would cost
oh, I
thousands of
see,
dollars.
right.
For that service, right? So.
Yeah.
We're hoping that, we can share with our neighbors.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, good point.
Okay, so thanks, everybody, and any other points, you know we're going to the meeting, so feel free to let us know. Okay. So, we're on to the town property write-offs. That's not quite town property, is it? Yes, it is. Okay.
Yep.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I could move to recommend to council to approve the write-off roll 00092398 and roll 04997409 interim taxes in the amounts of $680.85 and $3,244.80 respectively for the town of Annapolis Royal for town-owned properties.
Well,
I'll second.
thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Thank you, folks. All right. Next, we move on to correspondence. You have a letter before you from Andrew Murphy. Yes.
We got a response.
And this goes to EAC, I gather.
Yes.
Okay, so there's our response.
Okay.
Right. Next, we had a very long report with very many pictures, but showing lots of activity. A report from NSFM.
Mhm.
I don't know what your any impressions of the report, but the lobbying efforts, the database that they have for the grants, which I still haven't looked at and I need to.
Yes, it tells us where our money's going.
Yeah, you're right. There's lots happening.
And policing is right in the report as well.
It's in there, and now, we did go to a policing meeting, Mark and Sandy and I.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed by the municipal content. I'm not blaming the organizers or anything, but I think we were disappointed with the municipal content and what people were using as standards for success. We're doing this program or that. We found there was not good cost data from the municipal units. Most of them couldn't tell you what their police departments were costing.
Oh, really?
Mm,
That's not, well, the presentations didn't reveal that. It was very poor. It was data poor. That was it. It would have been nice to have the provincial figures because they'd be available for the financial statements. That might have been. But Sandy, any comments on that? It wasn't the greatest meeting.
Should set it out of their memory.
But numbers matter. I remember years ago when they were fighting to keep the health center open here, when I lived in Halifax, what allowed it to stay open was that this center had numbers.
yeah.
And Department of Health couldn't contradict those numbers because they had them and they didn't have numbers to fight it. So it was the same thing with the recent problem with the ambulance service. The fire departments could all provide statistics on how long it took the ambulance to get there, but the department could not, when it was asked to, it could not respond, and we never did here. Now, I'm sure it got sorted out because they had a meeting with the fire department. Okay, all right, so. Good report, lots of stuff in there. Okay. Now we're ready for the roundtable, I think. I'm gonna let others go first because I've talked enough. And the deputy mayor's not here, so we'll start with Councillor Hapting.
Okay, not much to report on this month. I attended the meeting with Chris D'Entremont and council in council chambers, so that was interesting. And sad to see the recent fire in Bridgetown, the total loss of the church.
Horrible.
A huge effort by the local volunteer fire departments, RCMP, etc. And just so thankful to everybody who worked so hard to try and save that building. That was a very sad day for the community.
Apparently they saved 3 rose
Rose-
windows. I don't know
yes.
what those-
Did they?
The circular windows.
Oh, they were so beautiful.
Yeah. So they're gonna be restored.
That's something.
That's me.
Okay, Councillor Sanford.
Well, I actually was in Bridgetown that morning because we have no Scotiabank, so I didn't bother up there, and I did see the fire. It was horrible. Very sad. I was to the church once for a wedding, and it was beautiful. And I did miss Chris D'Entremont's visit, but I did see him. Him and his wife was in the shop on the weekend, so it was great to chat with me. I didn't really do a lot this past month, so I'm just
Don't
gonna.
say that, you went.
Well, I was away, I was doing some, yes,
Family quality time.
family, and it was great, my parents had a great time.
I think we all do a lot, even if we don't have a lot to report.
Exactly, thank you, Bob,
You're
because,
welcome.
and if you have anything to add.
I don't have a whole lot to add. I will say Chris is delightful, even though I didn't get to see him.
Yeah, no, you didn't get there either.
I was working. Otherwise, yeah, I will be reporting on my meeting with the library boards, I guess at the council meeting at the